Hello, hello. Welcome to another Bomber Live session. My name is Nicole. I'll be your guest. I'll be your host for this evening. We'll be joined by two special individuals. Um, Jennifer, who is a counseling psychologist here at Mental 360. We've had one live session with her before, and there was quite a demand for her to come back. So we we listened to you. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank
Can
you
you
for joining
hear
us.
and see me clearly?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
great.
I
Okay,
can.
awesome.
We're
Thank you
good.
for having me.
Thank you for coming back. You
Of
were
course,
highly
I love it.
requested, so I'm really
Thank
glad
you.
you were open to it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Karibu sana. So I was just informing them that we have one other speaker who will be joining us. Her name is Joy.
Mhm.
Everyone is a J present. I'm the only N. But today's conversation is focused around your personal stories. And Joy has her own to share. So it's going to be quite an interesting conversation. I leave it open to those who are present for the live session to just throw in their thoughts, their questions. It's supposed to be super interactive. If you feel like you have something you want to share as well, please feel free to reach out to us. Let us know what you want to talk about, and then we can figure out how to make that happen. Hi, Joy. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Karibu sana. You guys, you can hear me and see me okay? Just want to clarify before we officially
Yes,
kick off.
Yeah.
yes. Very clear, loud and clear.
Okay,
Hi,
perfect.
Joy.
In case I haven't done your introductions justice, please feel free to reintroduce yourself to everyone. If you want to add any other snippet that I may have missed, please feel free, and then we can get on to the beginning of today's discussion.
Okay.
Maybe we'll start off with you, Jennifer.
Um, I didn't get to hear your introduction of me, but I believe it was
Ah,
sufficient.
yes,
Yes,
I
I'm
tried.
I'm Jennifer, and I am a counseling psychologist, and I'm glad to be here.
Amazing. Thank you for coming once again. Joy?
hmm
Hi, everyone. Yeah, but I'll go ahead and say something small. My name is Joy Garithi. I'm 29 years old, and I'm joining from Nairobi, Kenya. At the moment, I'm not working. I recently resigned from my job. However, I'm doing a lot of volunteering in gender issues, mental health advocacy, and I'm also running an online accessories shop. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to interacting with you guys and having a fruitful session. Yeah.
Yeah, you're busy. You're very busy. So, we wanted to center today's conversation around mental health and adolescence and what that experience is like. And if we could try and personalize it in a way that is also contextualized to our personal experiences, but it doesn't also have to be personal. We can just discuss the common topics that come up when we think adolescence and we think mental health. So I'm going to start off by reading for us just two statements from an article, and then we can respond appropriately. So, half of all mental health conditions start by 14 years of age, but most cases are undetected and untreated. Secondly, the consequences of not addressing adolescent mental health conditions extend to adulthood, impairing both physical and mental health and limiting opportunities to lead fulfilling lives as adults. So, one thing that we have noticed throughout all of these Bomber Live conversations is a lot of the things that we deal with as adults are things that carried through from childhood experiences. So I don't know how true this rings for you, Joy. Maybe we can start off with you and then get a more a professional perspective from Jennifer with regards to how factual this is.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. Well, I would say the statement sounds quite right to me. In this regard, I'll just refer to my own personal experience. because my first attempt at harming myself was when I was 12 years old. And so that went through, like, I didn't know what was wrong, and I didn't know I had, I needed to, like, seek help or something. So it's been a whole journey since 12 years old, coming to how old I am right now. So had I known probably at an earlier stage, maybe there are things I could have done differently, and probably I would be in a different place right now. But all the same, it's all about learning and growing. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Maybe I can add before Jennifer responds to both of us. I think especially the bit that stood out for me the most was that the concept around lack of detection. And I think that's also based, it's based on the assumption that as teenagers, things can be dismissed as you being hormonal, or this is a phase, or basically it's worded around that's what all teenagers go through. So it becomes hard for teenagers themselves, or even those set as caregivers or guardians for adolescents or teenagers, to be able to say, okay, there is the concept of a phase within that period. We know there's certain changes that cause certain things, but there also has to be a line that can be detected for, okay, this is an actual problem that needs to be addressed, versus this is a phase that they can learn on their own on how to adapt, respond, and whatnot. Jennifer?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said, and thank you, Joy, for sharing your experience as well. I think it's important when people speak up about mental health challenges, and this is part of the way that we help to destigmatize mental illnesses, and also to make it to like eradicate the shame around mental health, because there's a lot of shame attached to, I am the only one going through this, nobody else can understand me. So when people speak about the experiences, then other people are like, oh, so I'm normal. So like I was not imagining things. I am not strange. This is something that happens to people. I am not alone, because people don't want to be alone, of course. So sharing your experience is important, and thank you for sharing it with us. So yeah, what Nicole is saying is very true, and these assumptions that this is teenagehood, people behave like that, you will get over it. But as we know that some of these things don't always go like that, and we have seen so many issues that come up from such kind of assumptions. So think about the fact that suicide is the third leading cause of death among 15 to 24-year-olds, and we can't say this is a phase you'll grow out of it, because if and remember, it's the third, not after accidents and homicide, right? So suicide, being such a serious issue, cannot just be overlooked and people having blanket statements about it and saying it's a phase and you'll get over it. I think that is very wrong, and we all have to get to a place where we can identify these things and be able to deal with them as we go, so that we can save as many lives as possible, and we can also make it comfortable for people to express themselves. So yeah, that's what I would say about that. I think it's important for us just to be aware that this is real, and this is happening to many people. Some of the things now, of course, that happen to teenagers, some of the mood disorders that they experience are for example, what Joy has shared, so self-harm and suicide. And on top of that, there's mood disorders like depression. There are many teenagers saying that they are feeling depressed. Anxiety disorders, because it's a time where you're trying to understand who you are, but you also want to create your own identity outside of everybody else, because you want to become an individual. So I think it's called identity versus role confusion. You're trying to understand who am I really, and where do I fit in the world. And then there's also a lot of back and forth between you and parents and authority figures. Is they're expecting you to behave better, you should have known better, but they're also telling you that you're a child and you don't know enough. So you really don't know if you're supposed to be making decisions or not. You don't know if you're supposed to be standing back and letting them take charge, or you're supposed to be showing a little bit more initiative. It's really a challenging time. And then you have a bunch of people who are glamorizing adulthood, and they're telling you how they have their life in order at their age, whatever age they are. They might be older people, so they're not teenagers like you. And they're telling you, don't worry, even me, I was a teenager once upon a time, and this is what I did. And they probably won't tell you the challenges they went through. They'll just tell you about how they succeeded and came out unscathed. Is unscathed a word? It's a word, yeah, unscathed. So I think it's very important, even as people speak about adulthood, and when they're talking to teenagers and adolescents in general, let's bring a bit of reality. Let's remind them that we were also once teenagers, and we went through some of the things that we went through, but it does not mean that we understand what they are going through, because nobody can ever understand your situation like you. Nobody can. It's your experience. I can be with you. I can walk with you. Even when you go to therapy, your therapy cannot tell you that I understand, because they are not in your shoes. They can try to understand what you're going through, but they cannot sit there and tell you, oh, now I understand. This is what you're going to do, and this and this and this. Your life is your life, and your situation is different. So let's be very kind when we are sharing our advices about how we survived, and also be real to a degree, not necessarily to scare people, but to say that these things are normal and we all experience them, and it's probably likely going to be okay, and we will pull through when we have the support systems, because we need people to help us go through these things.
Thank you. I like what you've said. It's brought to mind the different the different kind of coping mechanisms that people turn to. So what I've noticed online is that a lot of what is used by the demographic is a lot of humor, most of the time dark humor or sarcasm, to, I guess, in a way, it's a way to combat the reality of the situations they're facing. Maybe Joy, if you're willing to share, what are some of the ways you found yourself trying to cope with the things that you were experiencing during that phase?
Okay, thank you, Nicole. So for me, I had quite a number of coping mechanisms, and I'm happy because most of them were positive. They kept me going. Yeah, so I would write poems and stories. Yeah, it was a way of releasing. I also would listen to music. At some point, I did write some music. I even went to music school after high school to keep my mind busy and occupied. Yeah, I did a lot of church and prayers because I'm a believer, and sometimes when you're in a dark place, you need to believe in somebody bigger than a human being. You need like a supernatural being to believe in. So I've always been a church person. Yeah, I've done a lot of reading. Sorry, but I had to write a few notes that I couldn't.
No, please feel free.
Yeah, because I know okay. You guys can see me referring to my notes. Yeah, and then also I was a very active, like all through in my primary school, in my high school. I was always active when it came to things like drama festivals, music festivals, essay writing competitions, like anything apart from books to keep my mind occupied and going. That's where you'd find me. Also, I would sleep a lot. I don't know whether that's a positive or negative, but yeah. Those are
for us.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom would complain though, you're sleeping too much. But yeah, those are some of the coping mechanisms I had. Yeah.
I like what you've shared, because I think what tends to happen is that because it's also in that phase of a deep search for identity, and that's when a lot of exploration comes in. And I think because I'm thinking back to my personal days and even my peers at the time, and that's when everyone would either be experimenting with sports, with art, you're overly invested in drama club. Yeah, so maybe those are just like silent coping tools we're also using, also in the search for trying to find a sense of belonging, I guess. So Jennifer, what do you think? Because I'm trying to think of an adolescent themselves, but then also for caretakers, and
Yeah.
maybe the advice you'll give will be different depending on the different categories. But what are some of the things that you need to look out for? What are warning signs that you could say, okay, there, you can't just try and figure it out on your own. You need to talk to someone.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's a good question, and it's an important one. And there are several. Okay, first of all, let's make sure that we inform people that there are child psychiatrists that exist, and there are child psychologists that exist. So they will not just say this person has a problem. That's it. They don't make assumptions about the problem. They have a criteria. Child psychiatrists, child psychologists will have a criteria about how to diagnose what a mental illness is and what is not a mental illness. So you can have faith that if you do see a professional, they're not going to be just imagining things in their head. So I think that's just pushing a bit of confidence in the field, in the profession.
Yes,
Remember, there's help that exists that is professional. Yeah. And then so the other things will just be stuff that you've probably seen. This thing where people call children angry. You'll hear them saying this adolescent is very angry. They're always they're always disruptive. They're all over the place. They don't listen to authority. That might be a thing you might see, but you also need to be aware that there's a disorder that is called oppositional defiant disorder that happens in children and eventually comes to be part of the what's it called? It's called I'm forgetting on the name. Conduct disorder. Yes, conduct disorder. So when they are younger, it's oppositional defiant disorder, and when they're a bit older, then it becomes conduct disorder. And it's where they're very defiant and very aggressive. They can be very aggressive. They can be very difficult to a degree, and I don't use difficult like a labeling thing. Like their children will not be able to work with, because you feel like when there's an authority figure, it's like they're fighting the authority figure. They don't want to listen. They're very vindictive. They want to revenge when something has been done to them. So it's a set of behaviors that you ordinarily won't, people will say, this child is angry or this child is difficult, but without realizing that it's actually a disorder that a psychiatrist can diagnose and help deal with, and a psychologist can help give you some coping strategies when you're working with this child. So for guardians, it's important to be able to identify that your child is probably not difficult, they just have an issue and you need to seek professional help. Apart from that, there'll be now what's something like what Joy said, the sleeping and oversleeping, if we may call it, sleeping a lot. Parents completely about this sleeping. They're wondering, hey, Kwani, what's happening? And I don't know if this happened in your households, but there are households where when you sleep a lot, your parents somehow are like, why are you asleep at 10? Have you seen that meme for President Kingston? Ndio kuamka at 1 a.m., 1 p.m., right? So maybe that's what they're thinking. They're just like, why are you sleeping for some reason? And they're not realizing that, oh, my child could actually have an issue. And me, I'm just thinking that this child is ignoring stuff, So maybe those are some of the things to look for. Aggression. There's this aggression towards people, towards animals, that is something to look out for in your child. Things like isolating a lot and extreme loneliness. They don't have any interest in their friends. So these are some examples of behaviors you may be seeing. Then maybe Kitambo, they had many friends. They were hanging out with their peers. They're having a good time. But then after a while, they start isolating themselves. So they don't do any extracurricular activities in school. They just come home, lock themselves in their room, and they don't talk to anyone, and you don't know what is going on in there. So things like that. Weight loss, sudden weight loss, or maybe as you're looking at your child, the developmental stages, and the child is a particular, you can't expect your child to be like 10 kgs and they're like in class 5. Like that, that is a gap that does not make sense. So you want to be able to tell, is my child developing and hitting milestones that they should be hitting at their age? Yes, every child is different, but there are some milestones that are very popular, that are very common among all children, right? So for example, a child who's not walking, exactly, if your child is not talking at a particular age when they should be talking ordinarily, maybe that's something to look for. So in an adolescent, it will be that there are some things that they are not doing that adolescents ordinarily do, like spend a lot of time with their friends. It's the time that they're doing what we just said, the role confusion versus identity. They should be at least trying to hang out with their friends. So you will see some of these behaviors. So things like that, harming themselves, self-harm, the cutting, there's always many ways of self-harm that I don't think are necessary to go through, but you will, when your child is doing some of these things, you should be keen. And I think you should just be hawk-eyed on your child, because you're the caregiver and the child does not know how to deal with some of these things on their own, right? I think it's important for me to say this in closing, that okay, not in closing like closing, but in closing this section.
For this one,
yes. So that for you to know what is normal and what is not normal, you look at maybe something like duration. How long has this particular behavior been going on with this child? So let's say it's something like I don't know, maybe let's say weight loss. For the last couple of months, they've been losing weight rapidly. That is something to worry about, right? So it's a duration. You want to look at how long has this behavior been going on. That will tell you normality and abnormality, right? The impact of the symptoms that they are showing. How are those symptoms affecting their behavior in school, their performance, their friendships, their family relations in the family? So you know when it is normal and when it's abnormal, right? Because you'll see this thing they are doing. How has it been affecting them during this period of time? So how bad is it? And then the persistence and the severity. Is it getting worse as we go? That is something to look for. So that will help you. It may not tell you 100% because, again, you're not probably a licensed practitioner, but it will help you see when it's like, oh, we actually now need to go and seek help. This is getting out of hand. So again, this is a call out to parents. Be hawk-eyed on your kid. Be very keen with your child. Neglect is a horrible thing to do to your child. So be very hawk-eyed on your child. That does not mean that you interfere with their privacy. Remember, they are also humans. But be very keen with your child. Be present. Be mindful. Be there with your child. Yeah, that's something I think would be important.
Yeah, I was going to say that I feel like it's important to reiterate that at the end of the day, these are things that are supposed to help you sort of act as a guide to know when maybe possibly there is a problem, but it's important to not look things up on the internet and then self-diagnose, or look things up with regards to your child and then decide, oh, my child has this. So it's always highly recommended that you go to a professional if you think there is a problem. Joy, I was curious, if you don't mind sharing, is anything that from the list that Jennifer has shared, did any of them ring true for you personally?
Well, thank you, Nicole. Yes, there are a number of things that rang true to me. At that time, I didn't know there was something. I used to think maybe I'm different, or there's something wrong with me, or I just have anger issues. Yeah, but I used to be, I think I would say I was an angry child and an angry teenager. I was angry at almost everything. I used to isolate a lot. I also used to act out, like I would run away from home because I didn't want to be there. I would cry a lot as well. Sometimes my mom would get me. I would even cry in my sleep. There's even a time she caught me and I told her I was dreaming, but I wasn't dreaming. Yeah, so yeah, some of those are what I can remember from back then that used to happen. Like I would remember, like even when people my age would hang out, I would find myself tending to want to be alone most of the time. So yes, maybe like even though I tell you, like I was very active in say music or dance. Yeah, mostly I would do solos, but then when I go as a group, I'll do my thing and then separate myself. I didn't like interacting a lot with people. Yeah.
What support systems do you wish you had during that period?
Well, personally, I really wish I had the awareness, because had I known there was a problem, then I would have sought help. all along I thought it's something wrong with me. And I wasted almost 17 years because I think when I got to go get a clear diagnosis, that was like 2 years back when I was 27. And I've lived with it for like 12, since I was 12. So that's almost 15 years. Wondering what's wrong with you, being angry at the world and such like. And when I got there, I said, okay, I've been doing talk therapy all through since high school. I was doing talk therapy, but then now 3 years back, that's when I started clinical therapy for depression and anxiety. So you see, had I known, it would have been treated earlier, and I would have maybe had a better turnout than I did. I would have had better relationships than I did. So for that, I really would say the biggest support system that I wish was there was the awareness, and also maybe like Jennifer mentioned, it's good for parents not to neglect their children, because you can all be under roof, but you're neglected. So I can't go much into that, but I think parents also they play like a huge role in how the child develops, or rather the care. It doesn't have to be the parent, because some people live with their guardians, some kids live in children homes, rescue centers. Yeah, so I would say the guardians, they need to be present and involved.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate you being honest and vulnerable during this live discussion. Yeah, I really felt what you were saying. I was thinking back to moments when I maybe have been going through something and it's being dismissed as oh, she just has attitude. It's these teenagers and their attitude. So it's because like you were saying, there's a tendency to isolate, to withdraw. So even in the moments when that presents itself as an opportunity for conversation, even in the simplest way of someone just asking, are you okay? Like, what's going on, instead of it being an assumption for this one just has attitude. I feel like that's really important. And I'm curious as to what you guys think needs to happen in, let's contextualize it, in our local educational systems to promote more of this. Because during that period, if you're not at home, you're at school, and then the in between is the time frame for the in between is less than the time frame you spend either at school or at home. So we've talked a lot about home situation, or whatever is our sanctuary or our haven or where we stay during that period. But what do you think needs to happen in schools to cater to some of these things? Jennifer, we can start with you.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question, Nicole. Thank you, Joy, again for sharing. You are really very brave to share your story with us. Thank you. I think in the school system, I'm not really a police in the education system, and I'm not a stakeholder per se in the education system. But as an outsider looking in, and I'm sure I can be educated more on this, I feel that this is actually me speaking as a person who has been through the education system in Kenya. I feel that the schools need to become more human. Like, they need to become more human places, not a place for teachers to exercise their ego and to exercise their dominance. Because sometimes I feel like some schools, especially boarding schools, and especially boarding schools that where parents are not very involved, because the teachers have this godlike presence where parents stay out. This is our domain. We are the ones in control over here. It feels like it's just the prison system in a way. I don't know if I just feel that there's a need to make schools human in general. Teachers need to realize that they're dealing with human beings, first of all. They might not be adults, but they are human beings who have their own emotions, their own experiences of life, their own desires and wishes, and they want to get somewhere. And this is a transition process. This is one of the places they might have to go through, because I know there are parents who homeschool, but this school may be one of the places where this child might have to go through before they get to the destination where they're going in life. And so don't treat this place where they have to go through to be one of the places they hate the most. Like, why would you want that as your street cred?
Yeah.
In quotes, like school. Why would a school want that to be the name it is associated with? The place where I had the worst experience, and it's a place where we spend over 12 years of our lives, right? From baby class, it's PP1 up to
it's
Form
4 now.
Yeah, like that is a very long time for me to be spending with you. Some of us spent that amount of time in the same school. Like, for example, you went to the same primary school from baby class to class 8.
Yeah, you just switch to the
yeah. So as educators, as schools, as management, administration, why would you want this place where children are spending so much time in your hands be the one place where they hate the most? Secondly, when you're dealing with somebody, and let's say now in the school system again, as a teacher, do you really want to be the teacher who teaches angry students? And by anger, it's not until now it's coming from them. It's the experiences they're having, very bad experiences. Do you want to be the person who's dealing with these people on a daily basis, and you are the reason probably why they feel the way they do? I really think that is something to look into. And maybe I'm sure there are educators out there who can sit me down and tell me more. I am willing to learn how this system works. And I would be very happy to just have a human school where things are real and teachers do not try to exercise ego. They don't try to dominate. They do not try to show that they are superior. You know, you're already superior. You're the teacher here, I'm the child. Like, you already have the power. You don't have to treat me like less. I don't know if that's a rant or if that's even an answer, but I hope there's something in there.
I think it's both, and I think a lot of people can feel that. Joy, if there was anything you could change from, you don't have, we're not going to mention schools and throw names and teachers and whatever, but if there was anything you could go back and change in your educational experience, what would that be for you?
Thank you. Well, I think I would marry what Jennifer said, because one, it's true, we need to humanize school. Because when you humanize school, that means it's also easy for the kids to come to you and talk. Because, for example, something like sexual abuse, it really happens in our schools. It happens in our primary schools, it happens in our high schools, and it's happening by sometimes even the teachers, you see. And then when you see the kids start acting out, you wonder, hey, why is this chick in class at that time teacher is behaving like this, like that? And then you as a principal, you say, he find her because she's being aggressive, being a bad example to other people. Rather, you need to be human, because say this lady listens and she's in history class, but when it comes to chemistry, clearly there's something going on. So if we could be human enough to just sit down and look at the reason behind the behavior, then, because also kids, some of us as we grew up, we didn't have like the best of communication skills. So there's no, you could go and maybe approach someone and say, hi, but this and this is happening. I don't know if it's right, but it doesn't feel right to me. Because in some cases, like sexual abuse, when it happens, especially when you're a kid, you don't even know what that is. But somehow deep down you feel, this is not how things are supposed to be. Something wrong happened. Why is this person doing this to me in hiding? You see, why is this, why he or she has done to me, making me feel ashamed? Why is it making me feel like there's some, I should be ashamed, or there's something bad that has happened, but I'm not able to maybe approach someone and tell them this and this is happening. So we need to humanize school. Another thing I think I would really push for in our schools is, you see, the way there was like a very big upsurge in HIV, and we could go to schools and teach kids about HIV. It could, at some point, I think, like we could even like have some sessions every week on HIV/AIDS and how to prevent yourself and such. So I think we should maybe have mental awareness being introduced in schools. So we could have like probably during clubs, at least you spare like 30 minutes every week. You talk to kids about mental health awareness, the signs they can look in their peers, because you know some suicide attempts by students, like a peer could maybe have seen the signs, but then they talk out when it's late, and then they'll be like, hey, she used to talk like this. Oh, by the way, there's a time she started giving out. Sikuwa najua, kumbe this is what was happening. But then now you see, if we've taught the kids and they know the things to look out for, then I think that will really boost us in regards to creating mental awareness, also reducing stigma, because once you get to know you need help and you get help, imagine you live like a normal person. So yeah, I think that's what I would do. That's my input in regards to that. Yeah.
I think you shared beautiful points, and I concur completely. Because I was also thinking along the lines of, because I think maybe next time what would be important is to have a parent and then someone within the teaching association present for a conversation like this. Because I'm not sure if teachers are also familiar with psychological first aid, or if there's any background with regards to psychology, so that they're able to pinpoint certain behaviors and certain signs, just so that, like you said, Joy, to catch things early. And maybe part of the problem as to why sometimes the effort isn't felt is also because it's one person dealing with 30 to 60 to 80, depending on where you are, kids. And I can understand how that would be overwhelming, on top of other additional tasks, administrative or otherwise. But yeah, I completely agree with what both of you have shared. So maybe that would be an important thing to come back to when we have those two people present for this conversation. And Joy, you touched on something that I sort of want to go back to with regards to current events. I want to touch base on what you said and relate back to current events, because there's been a lot of strikes and riots in schools, and we've heard some of our people in power suggesting that the solution is to bring back corporal punishment back into school. And my personal opinion, outside of, this is not a mental 360 opinion, this is a Nicole opinion, I feel like that is another case of treating symptoms and not sources of the problem. I'm curious as to what you guys think of the situation, and feel free to add in whatever solutions you think are necessary. You never know who's watching. It could be someone who's in policy making, and maybe they'll be hearing pointers that they feel are important and necessary. So maybe this time we can start with Joy, and then we'll close with Jennifer.
All right, thank you. So yes, I am anti-corporal punishment, mainly because for that one, we will always remember the beating, but sometimes we don't remember why the beating happened. So I really don't think corporal punishment is the way to go. And also, you see sometimes during the beating, the teacher or even the parent, at some point they might disconnect and start now acting out. It's their frustration that they're acting out on the kid, and that could result in physical injury. So that's another reason why I'm anti-corporal punishment. Also, I feel like for some like the early development years, it is okay, because the kid, when they come to the world, they don't know what is right and wrong. So when you like teach them up to like say age 8, 9, I think that in my opinion is quite enough in regards to maybe the spanking or the beating, telling them this is wrong. When they do something right, you reward whatever is right. So but then now you're dealing with a teenager who has been who has been beaten like all through, do you think that will really make a difference? In any case, you find that some of these kids, especially when they get to being teenagers, that's when they now start having like even these mental disorders like personality disorders, mood disorders, and also trust issues. Like, because you see, teachers are the people you need to go to, like when you need to talk something out. But then if this is the person who is beating you up because you made a mistake, really the trust system there is broken, and you have no one to run to when you're having issues. And also it's, I think the corporal punishment in a way, it propels the aggression in kids. So you find that someone is prone to be maybe a bully, or be like physically violent with even their peers because of that the corporal punishment that they've gone through. So to maybe an alternative way that we could approach the rioting, first of all, it would be good to understand why the kids are rioting. Some factors I'm thinking, that's based on even interaction, because I mentor kids, and these are some of the things they tell me, especially during this COVID period, where the terms have been like so rushed. The kids are very stressed. In addition to stress, they have anxiety because they don't fail exams, but they don't really like have like enough time to prepare so they can be confident for the exam. So there is the anxiety, there is the stress, and then of course there is the peer pressure. Like when you see, akina nani walichoma shule, let's also do that. You see, they did this, nani, they walked out on their head teacher, let's do that. You see, so some of them it's peer pressure. So I think it's good to understand the problem. When you understand the problem, it's easier to know how you can manage it. Alternative ways I would recommend would be, of course, counseling. Counseling is always good. Talking to the kids, letting them talk, you know, that would be helpful. I think also we can use writing, even if it's anonymous letters. Let the kids express, give them a chance to say what is not working, so that you as the policymaker, or you as the teacher, the disciplinarian, you would know how to approach the issue. Because if you got like say anonymous, and you see, but you know, to do something like that, of course you'd need like a very big level of trust. Because I would say I'll do an anonymous letter, then a certain teacher knows my handwriting, and then now things go very south from there. So, but anonymous letters would also work, or even letters with your name, because we are teaching these kids how to communicate, and communication is the way you are right now. So you just come to me and tell me, Mwalimu, this and this is not working. This is how I feel about this. That helps you to even manage your stress. Something else I think our schools can include is just being a bit more fun. Because taking one day out to make your kids happy, release their stress. So like there we have like, yes, you have the term, the normal activities. You can just surprise the kids with a fun day, bring some people from outside, maybe even musicians or sports guys. They do like physical activities, sweat it out, you know. I think that would also help. One more thing I would recommend is logical consequences. I found that to be reasonable, in that, for example, how kids are burning schools. You know, at the end of the day, it's the parent will have to go back to their pocket to get the funds to construct, say, a new dormitory or a new classroom. So instead of this, you make the kids work to get the money to rebuild the dormitory, because why did you burn the dormitory in the first place? So as a form of, say, punishment, maybe we say we have a school farm where we usually hire workers from outside to come and plant, and then you pay them something. Instead, you come, you work on the farm, then that money that would have used to hire goes maybe towards the kitty to construct the dormitory that you burnt down. So some of those are the approaches I would use in opposition to corporal punishment. Yeah. Thank you.
I think those are really good points. I like the element of consequence. I don't know how many people present would agree would agree with the methods, but I like that you did add consequence, because at the end of the day, all our actions um, come with, they have consequences that come with reactions. There has to be some kind of response. Jennifer, do you have anything else to add to that?
I think Joy has done a really good job at highlighting some of the things that are problematic about corporal punishment. And thank you, Joy, for sharing the alternatives. I think that is important. And I think it's important for us to remember that the line between corporal punishment and abuse is very thin and can be crossed very easily. So the moment we start saying yes to corporal punishment, we need to ask ourselves, where does it end? Where does abuse start? And are we willing to tread that line? Is that something we actually want to do? And I don't think anybody can confidently say that the reason they are who they are today is because they were corporally punished. I have not met anyone. If there is, please, this is your chance to raise your hand.
There's an important figure that within our political space that said that. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah, like I would be, I really, and just because you turned out fine after the corporal punishment,
you think that you did.
Is the best. Exactly. Like first of all, we don't know if you really turned out fine or you're saying this because in public. At the end of the day, again, just because it worked for you does not mean it will work for everybody. We tend to make corporal punishment seem like the one thing that works. Like we said, this is the one thing that works. Let's do it for every single person. And I'm thinking, no, I don't think in the world we've ever seen anything that works for everybody. There's nothing that works in this world works for everybody. So I think in general, corporal punishment is a lazy man's activity. This is somebody who has refused to be imaginative about behavior modification. They have refused to question. They have refused to be creative. They have refused to find better ways of dealing with problems. And they have used the easiest tool they can get, the one that anybody can administer, and that's corporal punishment.
No, that's a strong point.
So I think the education sector, education policymakers, education people, anybody stakeholder in the education sector needs to sit down and reassess and reimagine education, reimagine behavior control among teenagers, and also ask yourself, what other ways can we learn to deal with problems? Because if, let's say, for example, the kids are maybe angry because the diet has been changed. Let's say it's a diet thing. I don't know. This is just an assumption. So let's say they are angry about the diet. So you can just have a conversation about what really would be a better diet for these kids. Why are they complaining about this thing? So that you guys can learn what is dialogue, and you can model it to the students so that they know what it looks like in real life. The moment they get out of school, you want them to become functioning adults in society. You don't want them to get to the workplace, and when they do not agree with the boss, they burn the building. Because they didn't learn dialogue in school, the place they were supposed to learn most of these things. The same way, if they are fighting with their parents at home, are they going to burn the house because they are fought with their parents? Like, this is a learning opportunity, and use it the way, maximize the benefits of learning from this thing. These are places to learn. Let's learn how to have dialogues. I think persuasion and collaboration and cooperativeness is something that people who will not choose to be lazy and use corporal punishment can try to learn. Like, it's harder to help cooperate and collaborate with more than 100 students in a school. That takes some skill. It requires you to know how to handle people skills. You need to know how to learn to handle people skills, to have those people skills, and to learn how to deal with teenagers. And so that is hard. And you have to choose to do the hard things, because they help deal with those problems in the long term. Corporal punishment will only work right now. You'll beat them today, and tomorrow they will forget. Or by the time they come back next time, they've forgotten what you were beating them about. Again, I think it also teaches kids to become fearful of authority figures. So it becomes really hard for them to speak for themselves, to advocate for themselves when they become adults, because it's called putting the fear of God in them. They
Yeah.
cannot advocate for themselves when they're in the presence of adults and other public figures in future. And I think that can also, I don't know if this is a stretch, but I think also that can make them easy targets to abusers in future, because they do not know how to speak for themselves when they are in situations that require them to speak for themselves. And I think
Yeah.
other than that, other than it creating those, making them easy targets for abuse, I think it also makes them just tired and afraid and angry, because they're like, this is not working for either of us. Why are you doing this? So I think it's
Yeah.
important that let's do difficult things so that you can deal with the difficult problems. Let's not try to get simple solutions to difficult problems. That is lazy.
Yeah.
That is not admirable. That does not build a society. That just makes kids become fearful, angry, and better liars. They learn how to hide their mistakes, because they know mistakes get them beaten, mistakes get them punished. That is just sad. And they grow up to be angry, sad adults. And the angry, sad adults will make a horrible world. You cannot work with them. You cannot date them. You cannot marry them. They punish their own kids when they have their own kids. They become horrible bosses when they become bosses. So let's not be lazy, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Very strong statements from both of you. But I feel like they were very necessary, and they've come from a point of, like you said, Jennifer, we can't keep using simple solutions for difficult problems. So as we close, I would like to end with a small activity, if both of you are willing. And it's not a complicated activity. It's just a question you answer, and then we'll close. So no pressure. Feel free to participate if you're watching us from wherever. But basically, I would like for us to answer one question, which is, what would you tell yourself if you could go back to your adolescence? What's one thing you feel like you would have wanted to hear in that period? And because Jennifer just spoke, maybe we can start off with you, Joy. Or do you need time? Do you need a second? Maybe Jennifer is
No,
ready.
I
Okay,
ready.
I
okay.
need time.
I love the
I need
spirit.
time.
Uh-huh.
Well, I would write a whole book to my adolescent self, but then in summary, I would tell her, I am sorry, you are worthy, you are loved, and you matter. Yes.
Oh, I love that. I feel like you were telling me. That spoke to me as well. Thank you so much, Joy.
Joy is telling
I love that.
every one of us. That Joy is telling every
Yeah,
one of
you've
us.
literally spoken to all of us.
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Oh my gosh. I don't know, what would I tell my my adolescent self? That just do your best. Like what you're doing right now is really your best. At that time, I was doing really my best, and whatever I was going through really was valid. I was not imagining things. Yeah, and I think my younger self would want to hear that I was not imagining things, and I'm just proud that I was able to like go through that and get to this place that is very different, and it's unbelievable as well. So like probably just say that the future looks better than right now, and just pull through and do your best to pull through and hold on as long as you can, because what is ahead is really good, and it's not even everything yet. Like it's literally just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. Like that was tough, and probably some of it has been tough now, but it's not as bad, and you will be okay because you can do difficult things, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, I love both your statements. I don't think I should close with mine.
You
If there's
should. You
someone
actually
who
should.
has I should. But I'd
Yes.
also like to challenge those who have just joined us, because you've joined us when we're closing. But the current activity that we're doing is that if you could go back to your teen self, to your adolescent self, and tell yourself one thing, what would that be? Joy and Jennifer have already shared theirs. I think mine would be, you are not your mistake, and learning is a process. And learning also includes not just the books you're reading, not just the skills you are adapting to, but also learning yourself. And
Yeah.
leave room, continue to do that. I think, I don't know if Teen Me will have listened. I don't know if Teen Me will have been snapping at at that statement, but
Bird.
it yeah, but it rings very true for me now.
Yeah.
Or if you are still formulating your sentence to self, not letter to self. But Joy, I'll challenge you to write that book, because I feel like you have so much to share, and it would be so impactful. So if you ever wrote a book, please know that out of the three of us, or out of the 12 people who have been present for the live, you have what would it be? You have customers who would be ready to buy your book. So if you ever do, let us know, and we shall support that. So I will leave the activity as a continuous thing for the rest of the week for those who are present. Maybe you guys are still pondering, still writing. I'd like to say thank you so much to Joy and Jennifer for joining us for this conversation. Thank you for being so honest, so vulnerable, so raw, and giving such great advice. I hope that for those who are joining late, we always save our live sessions on our IGTV. So if you miss anything, you haven't really, because you can always go back and reference it and watch the entire video, because they both shared such important snippets that I think are essential to teenagers, and also just you as an adult now. I think there's a lot of forgiving that also needs to happen when we think back to those phases. So it's a continuous conversation. It doesn't end just because the life has ended. But if you guys have anything more to share before we officially log off, I'll give you the opportunity. Joy, maybe you can share how people can reach you, maybe some of the activities you're currently running with regards to your mental health projects and whatnot.
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, so, well, I don't know, I don't have a personality issue yet, do I? But I have different platforms you can reach me on. I do photography, so the page that I've joined you guys on is my photography page, where I express myself and stuff. It's called One-on-One Josie. Yeah, so you can follow me on that page for anything photography related. Then I do a lot of mentorship and volunteering, as I said earlier. Currently, we are running a book donation drive. Our deadline is 30th November. We are working with fellow volunteers. Our group is called Soma Nawe 254. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Soma Nawe 254. And also, if you'd like to be a part of the awesome book donation drive, feel free to join us. On the actual donation day, we also have mentorship with the kids. Currently, we've identified a children's home. It's in Mombasa. We are still fine-tuning the details. So if anyone out there is listening and probably you feel like you'll be in Mombasa, you'd like to inspire some kids in a children's home, the ages are from 7 years to 18 years. Yeah, so we are welcoming book donation book donations, like storybooks, textbooks, self-help books. Those ones are all welcome. Also, because of the period poverty, we're also advocating for sanitary towels. If you can link us to reusable sanitary towels, that's also good. Yeah. And then also, if it would be possible, we are really trying to look for a counseling psychologist to be part of our volunteer team, especially for the D-Day. It's glad of December. So if we could get a counseling psychologist, so if you're out there and you feel like it's something you'd be interested in, you're very welcome to just chat me up either on one-on-one Josie or on Somanawe 254, and maybe we can link up and do something good together. If also you check my page, you'll see the poster and the details. So please feel free to reach out and let's make this happen. Thank you.
All right, I'll make sure to tag the pages that you mentioned just in case anyone missed it, and then they can always refer back to that. Jennifer, I'll give you an opportunity if you wanna, if you have any closing remarks.
Oh yeah, thank you, Nicole and Joy, for inviting me here. I'm really happy to have participated in this session. It's really fun, and I love Instagram Lives. So, where you can find me and the things that I do, go to. I've typed it, I think, in the chat, and just go to safespacearena.wordpress.com. That is where everything that I do, you will find everything that I do. So that's where we have the podcast sessions. We have a podcast with my friend Lawi. It's called Conversations with a Therapist podcast. And it's for creatives mainly, but anybody can listen in. It's really fun. So come over, listen to a podcast on Spotify, on YouTube, actually it's on YouTube as well. So just come in, have fun. You'll see some blogs we write and things like that, if that's your stuff. Come through, you'll see everything that you need to see at safespace.wordpress.com. And yeah, if you like books, you can stick around to my Instagram. I am a bookish person, kind of. Yeah, so I guess that's everything.
Okay, thank you both so much for sharing. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this live conversation. Again, if you missed any bits of it and you joined late, don't worry, we'll be saving it on our IGTV, so you can always go back to that and watch the full session. Thank you both for joining. I really loved all the input you provided, and I'm hoping we can have more conversations like this. Until next time,